Hello and welcome to another edition of Cult Movie Club with me, Rob, and today I'm going through my Arrow collection. Arrow is a label that I've been a fan of since they started releasing stuff back in 2010, I think it was. The first editions of the stuff came in like a window box, which was really impressive. I've not seen anything like that on the Blu-ray market at the time. And there's a huge amount of care that has went into all the stuff that they put out, not just the remastering of the film, but all the additional content. Most releases as well come with a booklet. So these exploded out. I think the first one I saw was Maniac Cop, and I was slowly getting into these. The one that I first got, however, that was really interesting was Demons, because I was a big fan of that film when I was a kid, so I was really interested in picking that up, which I did. And then I've subsequently, as years have gone by, I've picked up quite a lot of releases since. Some from the sales, some from in-store sales and multi-buys. So I've picked up some blind buys just because they're in a multi. But a lot of them I've picked up because I have some sort of appreciation for them, either from when I was young or I just like the film. I don't tend to collect these just to collect them, so I don't go and buy every single release. So I've not got an entire collection. It's quite a small collection compared to some, and I really haven't got any of the limited edition sets in here either, because I'm not in really a financial situation to dump a load of money on one film, and I don't really double dip buy either. So if I've already got a release of something, but Arrow have pointed out, it'd have to have something on it for me to be like, okay, I'm double buying that, because I don't just buy things for the Blu-ray, the way it looks. I buy the film because I like the film. There has to be something on it for me to want to go and buy that film again, basically. So I'm going to go through what I've got here, one by one, and just say a little bit about them. So here we go. Let's start off with The Adventures of Buckaroo Bonsai. Across the Eighth Dimension. This is a wild film with a great cast. Peter Weller here in the lead. I think just before RoboCop. He's like he's a rock musician who is also a secret agent who ends up going to the Eighth Dimension with his ragtag band, which include Jeff Goldblum, Christopher Lloyd's in this, and John Lithgow's in this. So it's a fantastic cast. It's a pretty wild cult 80s movie. Along the same lines, I suppose, if you compare it to something, it's along the same kind of lines as Big Trouble in Little China. Very enjoyable. This was a blind buy, actually. This was one that, again, I picked up as part of a multi-buy in HMV or something, and I really enjoyed it. I thought it was great. I'd never seen it before this. So that's the first one. Highly recommended if you have not seen it. Next is Audition, a film that I watched not long after it came out. A pretty notorious film from Miike Takashi, who I'm a fan of. I'm not going to say anything about it just in case there's people out there who've not seen this, but this is highly recommended. And again, a great release from Arrow. Next, we're going to The Beyond, Lucio Fulci. My favourite film of his is Zombie Flesh Eaters. Of his three films is Gates of Hell Trilogy. This is probably my favourite of the three. City of the Living Dead is alright, and so is House by the Cemetery. This has got some pretty good atmosphere. Although with these films in this trilogy, it seems like the big gore set pieces are just set to happen. They're not natural to the story. Like, why would someone leave a big bowl of acid on a shelf? People just don't do that. That's been clearly set up for the set piece, which is fine. You know what you're getting into with these films. I think this is definitely the best of the three that I've mentioned. On to Big Trouble in Little China that I mentioned before. John Carpenter film with Kurt Russell. It's not my favourite John Carpenter film. It's not my favourite Kurt Russell film. It's not my favourite that those two have done together. It's still pretty good though. Has a lot of fans. Like I say, it is great, but Escape from New York and Think are wildly superior to this, but it's still enjoyable. Black Moon Rising is Tommy Lee Jones in an early role. before he was in Under Siege and then The Fugitive and was a big Hollywood star. This was before that. Also starring Linda Hamilton, from a story by John Carpenter, and it has got a sort of John Carpenter-ish score to it as well. All about this super high-tech race car. Well, it's not really about the car, it's about what Tommy Lee Jones hides in the car. And then there's like this mission to go and get this thing out of this car. It's alright, it's 80s kind of cheesy movie. Also got Robert Vaughn in it, who was like a staple in those days as well. So that's worth looking at if you've not seen it before. Another good release from Arrow also. Next to Blowout, John Travolta, Brian De Palma film. Really good, really good. Steelbook edition here as well. This is fantastic film, highly recommended. Next on to The Burbs, early Tom Hanks. So, you know, before Tom Hanks was the big Tom Hanks as we know him today, I think he just did this after Big. It's like a bit of a horror comedy. Same director as Gremlins, Joe Dante. Yeah, it's pretty good. It's a pretty good film. Next is The Car. I saw this film about 15 years ago. My cousin for my birthday got me a selection of DVDs. This was one, The Car. What was the other one? I can't think of what the others were. Anyway, this was in it. And when it got released by Arrow, I had to pick it up because I got rid of a lot of my DVDs when I was upgrading all my stuff to Blu-ray. It is kind of like Jaws with a car. It's kind of the same premise. It's not great. It's one of those, yeah, it's pretty bad, but it's got its enjoyable moments in it. It's pretty original in parts as well. So yeah, that's that. This is one I talked about in a previous video that I picked up rather cheap. This is from Our Academy, so I'm putting all the Our stuff together here because I only own a few Our Academies. So everything's together. Yeah, I enjoyed this. This was a pretty good film. Like I said, I spoke about this on a previous video. Worth picking up if you see it pretty cheap. I enjoyed it actually, it's pretty good. Day of the Dead, George A. Romero. This and Night are my favourites. I know that is complete sacrilege. Dawn is my least favourite of those three. So, I'm sorry, that's just my opinion. I love this film. This was an early Arrow release. This was one of the first wonder boxes, this and Dawn, I think, before they started coming out with the other stuff. Really rare to get hold of now. This is just a standard edition, but I think this is even pretty hard to get hold of now as well. So yeah, great horror film. Next, another Arrow Academy title is Demon Lover. I've spoke about this on my last Halloween video of things you might not have seen, so I'm not going to say much about it here. Pretty interesting film. Bit of David Cronenberg influence going on here, as well as a few other things. I liked it. I spoke about demons at the start of the video, so this was like the first Arrow release that I ever got. It's Demons 1 and 2 in the Steelbook. I remember seeing these films when I was a kid, in what would have been like, not really a pound shop, but in a bargain place, and they had a bargain bucket. They used to have these bargain buckets full of VHSs, and they used to come in like cardboard sleeves like the American VHSs used to. We used to just have the plastic ones in the UK, and they were like, I don't know, £2, something like that. And Demons was like a staple of those bargain buckets, and I remember talking to whoever I was with to buy, and watched it, absolutely loved it. Held on to it, and then I lost it in time, and then when I saw this was getting a Blu-ray release, I had to get it. So recently had the 4K limited edition treatment, which again I've not been delved into because I've got it here. I'm quite happy with this release. Maybe at some point I will, I don't know, we'll see. Next is the film I've talked about in a previous Halloween video also, is Dream Demon. I highly recommend this film. This was like a lost British horror from the 80s that recently got kind of, BFI recently treated it to a festival screening and all sorts, and Arrow released it. It's a great addition. It's a great film. If you're into horror, you're into Arrow. You need to be owning this. Next is Eaten Alive, which I'd this was part of a multi-buy again. so I'd not seen this until I got this. It was directed by Toby Hooper, Texas Chainsaw Massacre. I think this was the film that he did after that, and it's got the same kind of gnarly vibe to it. It's pretty good actually for a 70s horror. It's nowhere near as good as Texas Chainsaw. I'm not even putting it in that bracket, but it's got the same kind of dread, and it's dirty, seedy kind of filmmaking to it. Robert Englund's in this as well. That's not bad. Edge of the Axe. This is a recent one I've picked up. I think I got this one last sale. I was into this actually. I'm not a huge slasher fan. I don't mind them, but this had some pretty good atmosphere to it. I do enjoy it. I could see there was a twist to it, which I kind of saw coming a mile away. But yeah, I still enjoyed it. Worth having a look. Another bargain bin one from back in the day. The same bargain bin that Demons used to be in, Exterminator used to be in also. The picture of the guy, is it the reverse sleeve? I need to start reversing some of these sleeves. I normally just keep the reproduced artwork, but yeah, that's the original sleeve. That was the VHS cover. That's what I used to see in the bargain bucket. This was one that I didn't pick up back in the day, but I was interested in seeing when I started getting these Arrow releases, and this did not disappoint. Pretty savage exploitation films, pretty violent, especially for its day. It's really good. I'm trying to think who directed this now. I can't quite see it, and I can't quite think off the top of my head. But yeah, it's definitely worth watching. Along the same lines as Death Wish and stuff like that, but it's quite well made. Okay, next onto a sequel. So I've got Hellraiser already on Blu-ray from an older release. I was intending to get the Trilogy box set, which I still might when I see cheap enough, or someone gifts me or whatever. But so at the minute I've just got Hellraiser 2 on the Arrow. 1 and 2 are definitely my favourites, 1 being my favourite and this being my second favourite. The third one is alright, and then after that I'm not really too fussed. Like I said, I wanted to get the original trilogy when it got released. I have got Hellraiser as I can't think of the studio that put that out originally, but I've still got that. I got this from sale a couple of years ago, and I remember really loving this when it came out. I enjoyed it less when I watched it recently, but I did still enjoy it. It is still good. I saw it as being as good as the first when I first saw it, but after watching it recently, it's not. But it's still pretty good for a sequel. Next is an interesting one, Hired to Kill. This is bonkers, absolutely bonkers. Oliver Reed's in this, and Brian Thompson, who was in like some Van Damme films in the early 90s, like AWOL and stuff like that. He's like the lead here. This is just a wild film, absolutely wild. Directed by Nico Master. I'm not sure how you say it, but he did a film called Island of Death, and loads of others. A few he's done. Arrow have released quite a lot of his work. This being one of them. Bit of a cult director. If you're an action fan or a cult movie fan and you've not seen this, then you need to kind of have a look for it. If you've got Arrow streaming service, have a look on there, or if you see this cheap enough. I think it's out of print now though. So next is The Incredible Melting Man. In the early 2000s, I was collecting the Vipco DVDs, and this was one of them, and this was how I saw this film. I'm not saying this is a good film, because it is not. In fact, the first review I ever did for this channel was this film, so yeah, if you're interested in what I think of this film, go and watch that review. It was my first review though, so it's probably not a great video. Killer Clowns from Outer Space is next. I remember picking this film up from a car boot sale in the probably late 80s or very early 90s. And absolutely loved it. It's one of the best of its genre. It's it's a great horror comedy, well up there with Night of the Creeps and Fright Night. Good effects, highly entertaining. This is a steelbook edition, which I think I got from Savvy. Can't remember, but I'm happy to have it in that edition. Great film. King of New York, Christopher Walken, a great Christopher Walken film. This is directed by Abel Ferrara, who did The Driller Killer and The Addiction. It's a pretty good gangster film, this. Very, very good. And it's quite under the radar. Anyone who's I've spoke to about films who like gangster films, and I've mentioned this, they've not seen it. So it doesn't get enough credit in that genre. Definitely worth watching. Had a 4K release recently, I think. Next is Night Riders. I saw this on Movie Drome, which I've mentioned a few times on this channel. Basically, Movie Drome was very influential of the films that I like today. I saw a lot of films on Movie Drome that I otherwise wouldn't have seen if it wasn't for that programme. So, thank you, Alex Cox. Thank you, BBC too. Probably the best thing the BBC ever did, in my opinion. Yeah, this is a weird one. In between doing the zombie stuff, he did this. It's basically like doing nights. They're doing a night thing, but on bikes, and it's like a road show that goes around, and there are a lot of family that do it. It's quite a long film. It's pushing 2.5 hours. But I enjoy it. It's pretty good. I have some nostalgia of watching it. I'm a big Rutger Hauer fan, so I was really, really, really happy to get this when it got released. It was a missing film. Well, it wasn't missing, but it was really hard to get hold of. It didn't really get released in this country, and it got a very, very limited release in the US probably. I think it only really got a release in where it was made in Italy. So I was really happy when Errol put this out. It's Legend of the Holy Drinker. If you're a fan of Rutger Hauer, this is a must, an absolute must. This is a great performance. It's one of his best performances, really, aside from like Blade Runner. Really, really good. Quite heartbreaking film also. I was just so happy to get this. Arrow needs to release more of Rutger Hauer's 80s work. There's still loads of stuff, especially in the UK, more so in the UK. We're still yet to see release of Wanted Dead or Alive, A Breed Apart, Wedlock. The Hitcher is coming out, but Arrow, why is it not you releasing it? I have a lot of things to say about Arrow at the end. Life Force. This I got from a Black Friday sale, very cheap, which I had not seen it before, I've just heard of it. So yeah, it's one of those canon films from the 80s, and it's Toby Hooper. It's pretty wild. It has got some pretty good effects in it all for the time it was made. It's pretty notorious, this. It's worth a go if you've not seen it. If you have seen it, you know what I'm talking about. Again, Maniac Cops. So this was one of the very early Arrow releases. I've not got it in that release. I probably should have. It was one that I always picked up and looked at. I got a later standard release of it. Maniac Cop. Bruce Campbell's in this as well. Directed with William Lustig. I saw this as a kid. Loved it. Thought it was great. I had it on DVD. And then I cleared out all the DVDs when I started buying Blu-rays. So I picked this up when Arrow. Not when Arrow released it, but I did pick it up. It's a great release. It's a great film. The sequels need a UK release. They are getting released in the US at the minute, but they need a UK release also. Back on to Arrow Academy. This is one I got quite recently. It's Merry Christmas, Mr. Lawrence, which is a fantastic film. David Bowie in a great performance. I think it was made in 1982. Yeah, I saw this back in about 20 years ago. And I really got into David Bowie. Huge fan. And I started looking at his film work, The Man Who Fell to Earth, and this one of the main ones that I was into at the time. It's so good if you've not seen it. Check it out. Next is, that film was really good. This film is the opposite. It's one of those films that you kind of, you own it because it's so bad. It's so bad. But it's so bad that it's good. And it's one of those films that you watch at midnight or you watch with a couple of friends and you basically laugh at it. It's Microwave Massacre, which, come on, it's just insanely crazy. how it's a documentary actually on how it was made. It was made for very little money, and it was done for fun, and that kind of translates when you're watching it, because you're getting that. You can tell how much fun they're having making it, because you're having the kind of fun watching it, even though it's terrible. Nightbreed, Clive Barker. I saw this in the late 90s and didn't like it, and I was expecting to really like it with being Clive Barker, and was really disappointed. I never went back to it, but heard about this director's cut that got released about 10 years ago now. So wanted to revisit it, because I heard that it was like it redeemed it, and it was, back to how it should have been. So I picked this up recently, and I watched that director's cut, and I must say I did enjoy it a lot more than I did the first time. It's still a flawed film, but it's hugely more enjoyable than the theatrical cut, which got butchered. David Cronenberg's in this, and David Cronenberg is really good in this. David Cronenberg should have been in more horror films, but that he might not have then directed the films that he did, so maybe not. Next is Phenomena, which is a Dario Argento film that I really like, and I know a lot of fans are not really into this one. I've had a couple of Dario Argento films in the past, and I've kind of just swapped them for other ones because I've just not got into them. But this is one that I did keep because I did really enjoy it. So, and it's got a great soundtrack as well. Awesome soundtrack. Next is David Cronenberg's Rabid. Early Cronenberg this. I think this came after Shivers. I had this on DVD, and then again I was happy to get it on Blu-ray. 101 Films, which is another label that I've got some stuff of. They did a release of this recently also, so I'm not sure. I'm guessing this is out of print now if they've got it. First window box. So I got Demons, and then very short time afterwards, when this got announced, I think I got this like straight away. So Red Scorpion, Dolph Lundgren. I'm a big Dolph Lundgren fan, especially of his earlier 80s and 90s work. Huge fan. This was one of his first action films where he solo was in. So that's the runbox cover. And then you get the original cover there. I miss these. They should do some of these. They're doing the limited edition boxes now, which are really nice. They are really expensive though. I think now and again they should put one of these out just for nostalgia's sake, really. You still get the booklet and everything, and you get to decide which one you put in the window. That cover's just amazing, so I put that in. It came out. I think it came out about 1988. Very enjoyable action film. Quite similar to Rambo, really. But if you're into that, you'll like this. Check that out if you haven't. Next is The Ring, which is, in my view, it's top tier horror. Top tier horror. One of the first J horror films to come out. It's got some really unsettling imagery in it. Some really unnerving scenes. The dread in the film is like, it's the vibe that it carries on throughout when she's trying to find out about this VHS tape. And then what happens at the end and the reveal of the character and everything. It's expertly done. Hundreds of films spawned after this, which tried to copy what this did, although not as effectively. Great film, very, very good. Hollywood remake is actually alright as well. Right, so we're into the last bit of this video now. Next is Runaway Train. This is a really good canon film from the 80s, really. It's John Voight and Eric Roberts and Rebecca De Mornay, who was, what was that film? Hand the Rock's Cradle. Great film, great performances, but quite under the radar. It's no one talks about this film. You don't hear it talked about, although it is highly rated. Definitely worth checking out. Shivers. There was a problem with this when it got released. I think they released the cut version, but claimed it was the uncut version. and then there was a big disc replacement program, which I got the replacement discs for. Shivers is a great David Cronenberg film. It was his first film. Caused a lot of outrage in the day because it was funded by taxpayers' money, and then when they watched the film, they was outraged by this horrific semi-pornographic film. But yeah, classic Cronenberg stuff. This. Next is a film picked up recently, Slugs. It's pretty good actually. It was, for what it is, for a horror film of this kind of caliber, I thought it was alright. But you know, I'm not recommending it as a great film. You know, if you're looking at that going, then you'll like it. If you're looking at that going, oh my god, then you won't. Society. So this was a film that I got told a lot about when I used to work. I used to work for Virgin. We used to work in Virgin Megastore, and I was surrounded by DVDs all day. So I have, helped with the knowledge of films, obviously. And I got told about this one a lot, but I'd never seen it. And then I picked up this when it came out. I think this was the film that they did their first limited edition box of, which I didn't pick up. But as soon as they released the standard version, I picked up the standard version. It's one of those films where it's building up to something, but then you're not quite prepared for what actually happens at the end, and it's just absolutely wild. Absolutely wild. I'm not going to say any more. Yeah. The Stuff, fun film. It's a crazy film. It's a very high concept film. People eating this ice cream that then kind of just kills you, basically, overtakes your body. The way the ice cream is found is quite comical. But yeah, it's a lot of fun. It's a good film. This is a great film. Thief by Michael Mann. Absolutely fantastic film. Fantastic. James Caan's in this as well. Quite hard to get hold of before this was released. So pretty good that they released it. If you've not seen that, you need to check it out, especially if you like things like Heat and Collateral and stuff like that. It's just as good as those films. Next is Vamp. So this is another window box that I've got. This is again down to Alex Cox's Moviedrome. I saw this on there, and then it's in the UK. It's quite hard to get hold of until Arrow put this out. So again, let's have a look at this. So you've got, that's the artwork that I've got on display. Well, that's your other artwork there. Like I said, miss these window boxes. Maybe you should do a select one. It's Grace Jones. It's a good kind of vampire horror comedy. A lot of it is set in this club. It's really good. If you're into things like Fright Night and things like that, then this is definitely worth looking at. You can still get this from Arrow, however, not in this edition, but they have re-released it quite a few times. I'm sure 4K is probably in the works at this point. Next is my favourite David Cronenberg film, Videodrome, which I've talked about quite a bit, probably, on this channel. This is the film for me that explores all his ideas and does them effectively. Some of my other favourites are Naked Lunch and Scans and stuff like that, but that's definitely my favourite. Next is one that is very under the radar, especially for people who collect Arrow films. You don't really hear them talking about this one very often. It's White of the Eye, and this is a film that I saw in the probably late 90s, early 2000s, after a very heavy night out. This VHS was lying around and it got shoved in the player and it got watched. And it was one of them weird films, one of the proper first weird films that I'd seen. Not one of the first, but I'd seen a lot around that time, so I remembered them all, really. And then I came to try and find this when I was collecting DVDs and couldn't find it anywhere. And then it was when it got released on Blu-ray, I actually picked it up from Arrow, and it's in a Steelbook edition. I'm not sure if you can still get this, but it's worth a look if you can. It's probably on the streaming channel. It's a different one. About as many people who like that film don't like it either. It is a bit of a weird one. I won't say it's a slasher. it's got like especially at the beginning, it's got like a Dario Argento vibe, but then it kind of turns into more of a slasher towards the end. It's a weird one. It's different. It's very different. Next is With Nail and I. I've got a limited special edition of this. It's not a big box. It's just normal. I got the special edition of this basically for I like With Nail and I. And I think Richard E. Grant is brilliant in it. It's probably his best performance. But I spent the extra money on this because it has the extra film, How to Get Ahead in Advertising, which is a fantastic film. Fantastic film. Yeah, it's on its own disc. You've got it in there. That is a proper cult movie. It's the same director as well as With Nail and I. I think it was done straight after. Definitely worth the extra money. If you can still get this, you need to grab it. I'm sure it's available on eBay. It's definitely worth it for that extra film. And With Nail and I is a classic film, and there is tons of special features on this as well. Next is one that I picked up recently, and I picked it up really cheap. I've not seen it. The blurb on the back got me intrigued, and it was a mental film. It's Wolf Guy. Yeah, it was mid-70s film that starring Sonny Chiba that never really got a wide release, but now is readily available. It's just weird. It's just weird. There's no real plot, really, to be honest. It's very thin. It's a very thin plot, but it is one of those. It's one of those midnight movies that is just totally wild. The guy actually doesn't even turn into a wolf, but there you go. Next is one that I picked up. It's the last one I picked up, and I've seen all these films. I don't put stuff on my shelf and leave it there for a year before I watch it. I've literally just got this like weeks ago, so I apologise. I haven't seen it yet, and it is The Woman. I picked this up ridiculously cheap, and it's the limited edition also with the other film Offspring. Again, I've not seen that either, so I've got 2 films to watch here. I've heard a lot about it. I know what it's about, so I'm looking forward to watching this, and I'm really glad that I've got it in this edition. Next is an absolute classic of the horror genre, Lucio Fulci's best film for me. It's up there with the Night of the Living Dead and Dawn and Day. It's up there with them for me. It's Zombie Flesh Eaters, which should have been a rip-off of Dawn of the Dead. They even called it, because Dawn of the Dead in Italy was called Zombie. They even called this Zombie 2. So it was designed as a rip-off, but in years it's got its own fan base. It's very highly regarded. The zombie effects in this film are incredible, absolutely incredible. Some of the best looking zombies on film for my money. So it was really good when they released this. This was one that I got around the time that they released it. Really happy to have it. A really good zombie film, really good horror film in general. Last is this was one out of curiosity. I'd not seen it, picked it up. It was blind buy. It was Zardoz, which is Sean Connery. Now, bear in mind, Sean Connery around this time was just coming off the back of the Bond films. He probably had most Hollywood scripts on his table. He had the pick of probably anything he wanted, and he went with this, which is, I can't even explain it. It's just absolutely just one of the strangest things to come out of like a major Hollywood thing. Sean Connery spends most of the film in what looks like a red nappy, and he's like floating around in this big head, which just spits guns at people and stuff. So if that little thing there that I've said interests you, then yeah, maybe worth checking this out. Absolutely strange. One of those weird 70s cult movies. If you're part of any groups, especially the Incredibly Strange Movie Group, this film just gets mentioned all the time. I don't even think you're allowed to mention it anymore. But yeah, if for some reason you haven't seen it, get it watched, because it is a strange one. It's one of a kind. It was a big director as well. Just mental how that got made. And that is my Arrow film collection. Relatively small compared to some, and like I say, I haven't got these huge boutique limited edition releases because I just can't dump that kind of money on a single movie unless it's like like if it was the Terminator or something like that, then yeah, all right. But you know, a lot of these films are, I like them for strange reasons, so I'm not prepared to pay £25 to £30. I'm not quite happy to have just a normal case for stuff like that. Arrow, from the company has changed quite a lot from like going back to the window boxes. It's changed quite a lot. They're now getting into more mainstream releases as with the 4K stuff that they're coming out with. So like when this came out with the first slew releases and you had stuff like Vamp and Demons and stuff like that, you wouldn't put, say, Pitch Black in there with this label, but that's something they've released recently. I like Pitch Black. I do like it. It's a good film. I just don't think it belongs on the Arrow video label, really. But it's probably something that I will pick up at some point, because I do actually like the film. But it is getting more mainstream. Whether that's a good thing or not, I'm on the fence about, to be honest. One of my favourite films is True Romance, which they are releasing, and they're bringing out this big 4K huge set of, and it's like, again, I love that film, but does it belong on that label? I'm not sure. But let me know what you think. They seem to be re-releasing now a lot of their older releases and just re-releasing them in 4K, so it's a bit of a concern. There's still huge amounts of films that are yet to be re-released on any format, never mind Blu-ray, that we could be delving into here. But again, they're just spewing out a lot of their old releases and putting them on 4K, which I get it, it's a business, it needs to make money, but I'd like to see more films that have not been released, that are not available, than see, like, I don't know, 4K release of Maniac Cops. I'd rather see a film that, you know, has not been released yet, especially those Rutger Hauer ones, if you're listening. But thanks anyway. Let me know what you think of that, and let me know what your favourite Arrow films are and stuff like that in the comments. Thanks for watching this video. If you have enjoyed this video, please subscribe, and thanks for watching, and I'll see you again soon.